So welcome back. Today we're going to be tackling a different historical dish. We're going to be talking about bread pudding. Bread pudding's been around for a really long time, but it became popular the way that we know it in the 11th century in England. This is during feudalism, and if you remember during class, the serfs and the peasants, they were tied to the land and they didn't really have any money. And so they didn't want to let things go to waste. So if you had bread and it got stale or kind of chewy or hard, they needed something to do with that. And so traditionally they would have actually filled it up with water and then wrung it out and then mixed it with sugar to make kind of a dessert. But as the recipe evolved, they started adding milk and eggs, which made more of like a custard, and that's how they would use their leftover bread. They would even mix it with like leftover fruit. If they had, raisins or anything like that, they would add it in. This is a super popular dish again, and we are making it today in a really modern way. This is also Mr. Rose's favorite dessert, and since neither he or I like raisins, we're going to leave them out of the recipe. Today we're going to be using that recipe from Mimi's Cafe. So here's the ingredients. So this is 10 pieces of bread. You would need a half a cup of raisins, but once again, we're not using them. 4 large eggs, a fourth a cup of granulated sugar, but we have a little bit extra in that pan. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, a half a cup of butter that needs to be melted, some nutmeg, and then we are using heavy whipping cream, but you could also use whole milk if you had it. For the sauce that we're gonna make after, you also need sugar and an egg and cream. And then you're also gonna add cinnamon to the sauce. Once your bread is stale, we kind of left ours out overnight, got a little bit hard. You're gonna cut it into little cubes. You should definitely ask permission before you do this, just because, well, you don't want to use bread that your mom has saved up for something else. Also, if you are using a giant knife, you should definitely have somebody there at home with you. You're gonna put all this bread into one big bowl and then just set it off to the side. In this bowl, and it's a separate bowl, you're gonna crack 4 eggs, my last one. Oops. Just grab it out, it's all good. Your 1/4 cup of sugar, all that melted butter, and make sure you let the butter have time to cool so you don't scramble your eggs, as well as your vanilla, and that's going to be 2 teaspoons. One and 2. Okay. Bob wants some attention. Hi, Bob. And then you're going to whisk that together really well. And you want to make sure the sugar is dissolved so there's no little pieces just kind of crunchy in your mouth. You don't want to wonder what that is. After it's all blended together, you're going to take half a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. If you have fresh nutmeg, they say that's better, but I don't have that. So just ground nutmeg works. And you're going to whisk that in. That's one of the spices that's going to give you a good flavor. And it kind of smells like the holidays. Whisk that in, and then you're going to mix in your 2 cups of either milk or heavy whipping cream or half and half. And then mix that till it's all blended. You can tell that my custard is completely mixed together. There's no lumps or anything. And now we're going to add the bread to the custard. It's really important that you do bread to custard instead of the other way around. That way you get all the custard in the bowl and you get to keep that, because that's going to make what's actually the pudding. So just kind of throw the bread in. Don't throw. Put the bread in there. And you're going to want to make sure it gets all soaked up. So I'm going to push it down with a spatula to make sure all the bread can get some of that goodness. Just kind of mix it around. You want the bread to be able, it doesn't look like it's gonna be able to soak up all of that. It's gonna soak up most of it. And then you're gonna put all of it into pans. But we're gonna let it soak for 30 minutes. That way it can absorb a lot, because bread is really porous and it's gonna just kind of soak in all of that good, tasty, sweet custard. We're back 30 minutes later. The bread has been soaking in the custard for a long time. Now, the recipe calls for an 8x8 pan, but I don't have one. So we're gonna put them in, these are oiled cake pans, and we're gonna hope that that does fine. Try your best. You gotta make best with what you have, especially during quarantine. So we're gonna pour it in, and it's kind of slurpy looking. I think we can put it all in one. Yeah. Make sure you get out all of that custard. We're gonna put this in the 325-degree oven for about 45 minutes until it's kind of goldeny brown and it's just barely set. So you still are gonna want it to have a little bit of a wiggle because it's a custard, so it's not like a cake where it's gonna get hard. While that's cooking, you're gonna make the sauce that goes on top. Traditionally, bread pudding doesn't have a sauce, but this one sounded really good, so I wanted it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna crack 1 egg into our pan. I don't have it turned on yet because I wanna make sure that it doesn't cook the egg or scramble it. So our egg, and then I'm gonna kind of just mix that egg up, break it apart. Okay. The next thing that we're gonna do is add in some more heavy whipping cream. This is 3/4 a cup of that. And it's really thick, so kind of scrape out your container. Cool. And then mix those two together. And it's gonna turn kind of a light cream color. That's when you know it's all mixed together, and that's when I'm gonna turn on the heat. Okay, so I'm going to turn it on low, and I am going to add in the sugar. This is a 1/2 cup of sugar, which is probably more than what I would ever normally put on anything, but that's okay. And then we're going to stir it pretty constantly because you want to make sure that it doesn't scramble your eggs, because having a sweet dessert with scrambled eggs just doesn't sound very good to me. Okay. Now that that's all combined and the sugar is dissolved, I don't hear anything crunching anymore, we're literally going to take less than a capful, you don't need a whole lot, of vanilla. And then it says a dash, so we're going to sprinkle in some cinnamon and some more nutmeg. Great. Our bread pudding is now out of the oven. It really took about 40 minutes. We're gonna try it. I hope it's done. It said until it's golden brown, which it is, and just set. So still got some wiggle in there. I think that's right. And our sauce is definitely done. So we're gonna plate it up and try a bite, and then we will, after we get done with the camera, we're gonna eat it with some ice cream because that sounds really good, and we talked about it in community meeting today. I hope that you watching this reminded you of social studies. I had a lot of fun making it. I don't know if I did it right. Why can I not make it? I'm gonna be very honest with you. I've always been honest with you guys. I just don't know, and I'm very scared to eat this. I've tried to make bread pudding now for like 5 years, and I still can't. I don't know. I follow the directions. If you follow the directions listed down below in that description box, it should turn out okay. I'm gonna try this. If it is not good, we're gonna stop the video here. Just know that, like, you can always, unless something is moldy, you can always repurpose it into something else. I hope that this works for you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Okay, we're gonna try it. Now I'm just thinking I've stalled long enough. I don't know if I did it right. It doesn't taste bad, but I don't know if I did it right. Update. We ate it and it was tasty with the ice cream. The sauce was the best part. We've come up with a couple of conclusions. The first is that we probably should have let it bake just a little longer. We did the 45 minutes and I didn't realize how like jiggly it still was and like it needed to cook just a little bit longer. And then also we're gonna let it sit in the fridge and kind of set up a little more and see if that helps at all.